The August 16th, 2022 meeting of the Carleton School District Board of Directors is called to order. Reese, would you want to lead us in place?
With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
Director Schreiber.
Here.
Director Apple.
Here.
Director Frank. Director Honchar.
Both Director Frank and Director Honchar are not able to be here tonight.
Director O'Brien.
Here.
Director Stimsick.
Here.
Director Zalewski.
Here.
Director Puskar.
Here.
And Director Voliana.
Here.
Thank you. There's a time at the beginning of each meeting where we invite the public to ask any questions about items that are on our agenda for tonight. Does anybody want to ask a question on an agenda item? If not, we'll move on. There is a time at the end to ask general questions or other topics. Moving on to section 2, approval of minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the voting meeting of July 12th, 2022. And then number 2, the minutes of the committee meeting on August 9th, 2022. Do I have a motion for that item?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Under section 3, we have a couple things. I'll report that we had an executive session part of this meeting where we discussed personnel matters and potential litigation. I'll now turn to Dr. Crater for the superintendent report.
Thank you, Director Schreiber. As part of the superintendent report, the health and safety plan, the American Rescue Plan was initiated last year, requires all school districts to publish and approve the health and safety plan for this coming school year in the 2022-2023 school year, and most likely it'll also be required in the 23-24 school year. The health and safety plans, as we've shared before, need to go through a review process of every 6 months. The last revision that we made was back on March 8th with our last revision. Currently, Allegheny County, in regard to COVID, is at the medium level. Keep in mind the levels are determined, they're either low, medium, or high based on the new metrics they use. And the metrics that they take into consideration, the data that they use has to do with the new cases, hospitalization rates, and then also the number of hospital beds, the percent of occupied inpatient beds. All that goes into making that determination of either low, medium, or high. Currently, we're at medium. We bounce back and forth between medium and high throughout the course of this past summer. The 22-23 school year health and safety plan builds upon everything that we've learned throughout the process of developing the health and safety plan throughout the past 2 years, and it takes into the considerations that are given to us and recommendations by CDC, Allegheny County Health Department, and then also PDE. If there's any mandates, certainly we follow those mandates. Recommendations, the board takes those issues into consideration. So the health and safety plan that is on the agenda for this evening, as you look through it, just outline the major tenets of the plan that are most familiar to, that have an impact on students, parents, and families as well. The decision to wear a mask during the course of the school day is entirely up to the discretion of the individual. We will continue to have surgical style and KN95 masks available to staff and to students. Face shields are available to all students and staff. We do have N95 masks available to staff members who request those. And then masking will be required in the event we have a student or a staff member who is exhibiting signs or symptoms of COVID-19 in the schoolhouse. While they're being evaluated by our school nurse, they will be required to wear a mask at that time. We'll operate again at full capacity, very similar to how we ended the school year this past year. The Cyber Academy will still be open for enrollment. The Cyber Academy, as you know, is a full virtual program that students can remain at home and receive instruction through asynchronous types of activities. Desks will be placed at a minimum of 3 feet from each other. However, we are permitted to create group work that is less than 3 feet, and that's entirely at the discretion of the individual classroom teacher. Physical education classes will operate both indoor and outdoor. Hygiene and sanitizing, and a lot of these things that, especially in the hygiene and sanitization area, these are things that we've learned from COVID, and some of the practices we've had in place prior to COVID, and many of these things we will continue to implement as we move beyond COVID as well. And some of those things, the continued use of sanitization stations, those are throughout the schoolhouse. Individual classrooms all have hand sanitizers and their stations set up in strategic locations. We'll encourage students to wash their hands regularly. That's good hygiene practice on every day. Students across the district, K-12, will be able to clean their personal spaces. Those are with EPA disinfectant wipes. We've made a lot of advances in our electrostatic sprayers. They not only sanitize the surface, but then they also protect the surface as well with different types of agents that we put in there, and continue to circulate the fresh air throughout each of our buildings. For positive cases this year, individuals, if an individual reports that they are positive, they will be required to isolate for 5 days. That's the standard practice. We'll strongly encourage those individuals as they come back from those 5 days of isolation to wear a mask at that time. It's not required, but it's strongly encouraged. There is no requirement to contact trace, and that was recently put out also as guidance from the CDC as well. However, the number of cases that we receive, we still will be required to report that to Allegheny County Health Department, and that's just a weekly report that we submit directly to Allegheny County. It does not include any names, it just includes just flat numbers of positive cases that are reported to the district. So that's basically that. Those are the highlights. The full plan is on the board agenda for public inspection, but that's what's on the board agenda that I'm recommending for tonight for the board to consider. Also on the board agenda is Act 57 of 2022. Basically, Act 57 of 2022, it amends the local tax collection procedures, and it addresses an issue mainly that affected homeowners who recently moved into the district, purchased a house, and then based on the timing for which they purchased the house and the timeline for which we provide the real estate tax notice, there have been cases across the state where an individual, based on record transfers as far as property addresses and so on, by the time they get to the taxing agency, in this case the school district, the paperwork it lags a little bit. Sometimes the taxpayer does not get their bill in time, and then that starts a process of penalties and fees being administered for late taxes. So what this act does is it creates a waiver process. So individuals who move into the district within that 12-month period, if they can demonstrate and show that they did not receive the notice was received on time, if they provide copies that the transfer of records occurred within the previous 12 months, and if they file the appropriate waiver, which what we'll use is the state waiver that's been issued to us as a part of this act, and provided then that the taxpayer pays the face value of the real estate taxes given, then that individual will be waived fees that would be assessed for late taxes. Districts are required to put some type of resolution together to address Act 57 by October of this school year. We have our recommendation that's on the board agenda tonight for board consideration that I submit to the board for approval. Do have a few upcoming building events that I did want to put down here. As the first one is new this year. This is the Meet the Teacher Night. Meet the Teacher Night replaces the open houses that we've traditionally had in the past. Meet the Teacher Night allows parents and students to come in basically prior to the school year to be able to meet their teacher, to get face-to-face interaction. So if there are any difficulties or any issues that arise throughout the course of the school year, parents have that opportunity to have that interaction with their child's teacher prior to the school year starting. Tomorrow night, Wednesday, August the 17th, it'll be from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock here at the junior senior high school. And then both Carnegie and Crafton Elementary Schools will have their Meet the Teacher Night on Thursday of this week from 5 to 7. So we pushed out e-blasts to our parents. We also, this summer, created a new Facebook page, pushed that out on Facebook very early in the process to help generate some interest in attendance. First day of school for all students, Tuesday, August 23rd. That's a week from today. We'll welcome all of our students back onto our campus. It's always exciting at the end of the summer as it comes to winding down that we greet all of our staff tomorrow, and then students will show up on Tuesday. Bus routes have been distributed to all students this year. Instead of just posting all of our bus routes on the district website, they've all been mailed out to our students and to our families, so they know where their bus stops are in advance. Also new this year is parent-teacher conference nights. We hold them annually moving forward on Election Day. So this year, that Election Day is Tuesday, November the 8th. There's no school on that day. The teachers will report, and they will be available between 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. They'll get an hour for lunch between 3 and 4 o'clock. But what we will do is we'll push out a scheduling mechanism for all parents to sign up in advance. Naturally, for some teachers, there's not going to be enough slots to see each and every one of their students that they have on their caseload. However, what we will do is provide more urgency to students who are struggling with coursework to allow them to sign up to meet with their teachers on a first-come, first-served basis there. So naturally, there are other upcoming building events, but these being new and different to this school year, I did want to point those out well in advance, just to bring some awareness to those events. So that is what I have for Superintendent's report this evening.
Okay, thanks, sir. Committee reports for Parkway West. Director Apple, anything you want to share on Parkway?
There was no meeting in August, but I did talk to Darby Copeland, the director out there, and he indicated that it's looking like we're well over 1,000 students in total over the morning and afternoon sessions, and could be even more. He even thinks it's going to be well over 1,100. So that's great news. I think that you look at what has gone on there over the last, say, 10 years, and just the responsiveness of the different programs. Now we have Diesel Tech, which is really taken off. They're looking to maybe hire a second instructor for that as well, and things like that. I think people are really seeing the value of career and technical education, and they do a great job out there. And we'll be having a meeting beginning of next month, and I'll have a more detailed report at our next voting meeting next month.
I agree, they do a great job out there.
Thanks.
Thank you. For Pathfinder, Director Honcho's not here tonight. Dr. Craig, are you aware of any major activities out?
Nothing new from Pathfinder that I'm aware of, no.
Actually,
They meet tomorrow.
oh, there you go. And are you going to?
Director Hunter.
Dr. Honcho will be there.
Yep.
All right, wonderful. Thank you very much. Shazda, Director Zelensky, anything?
There's no.
Okay, thank you. Well, something in the spring, I assume they'll have some meetings. Okay, excellent, thank you. Legislative and PSBA, Director Simpson.
Okay, I got a couple things here. All right, so I wanted to make everybody aware that there's a webinar tomorrow, sorry for a short notice, but it's tomorrow at noon, with the Consortium of State School Boards Association. If you remember, that's the replacement that, we're not an NSBA, the National School Boards Association anymore. So this was in part founded by the Pennsylvania School Board Association. So that group is having a meeting tomorrow at noon. It's a webinar. It's about federal advocacy, so if anybody's interested in that. One of the topics is proposed Title IX regulations, and if you want to register, you can go onto their website at cossba.org. So that stands for Consortium of State School Boards Association.org. So that's tomorrow. I also wanted to give you a heads up that the candidates for the 2023 PSBA leadership positions are announced. They're available on the PSBA website. Voting starts September 9th and will continue through October 29th. Boards should be sure to add discussion and voting on candidates to our agenda so that we can vote for our leadership positions. So you should receive an email message about that, so just wanted to give you a heads up to look out for that
Thank you.
amongst your other email. And then that's all that I have for legislative and PSBA. As far as the foundation, we didn't meet. When is the golf outing?
I think it's October, it's maybe the first or second.
Okay, because
It's the first Saturday in October.
I believe so.
I believe
Yeah,
it's the setup.
And I think we had a team last year, so I don't know if, we wanted to think about that and talk about that as well. So,
Let's talk about that offline, yeah.
yeah.
I'm up for it if anybody else is up for it.
I think Jude signed up last year, I don't know, so.
Yeah, it's October 1st, you're right,
Okay.
first Saturday.
I'll make sure to get some information out so everybody knows the date and how to go about registering if they want to. So, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Running down golf, October 1st. Any other comments or questions on board committee reports? If not, we'll move on to section 4. We have 5 items under section 4. I'll entertain a motion to approve. Number 1, 22-23 bus routes, for the bus routes for the 22-23 school year as submitted. Number 2, to approve the list of bus drivers for the 22-23 school year. Number 3, to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Carlington School District and the Carlington Federation of Teachers to hire a psychologist position at the elementary level for 1 year. Number 4, to approve the change order number 2 dated 7/20/22 for the Crafton Elementary miscellaneous upgrades list as attached. And number 5, the health and safety plan for the 22-23 school year as submitted and as Dr. Craig presented earlier. A motion for those 5 items under section 4.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, thank you. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Under section 5, finance, we have 3 items. I'll entertain a motion to approve. Number 1, the bills for July 21 through August 2nd, 2022, in the amount of $720,996.46. Number 2, the financial reports packet for the month, which includes all of the August 2022 financial documents, the July 2022 treasurer's report, the July 2022 investment report, the July 2022 board summary report, the July 2022 athletic fund report, and the July 2022 junior senior high school activities fund report. Number 3, the Act 57, or to approve the Act 57 resolution as was submitted and discussed earlier. Do I have a motion for those items under section 5?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded, thank you. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Under section 6, personnel, we've got 2 items. I'll entertain a motion to approve. Number 1, the personnel agenda as submitted with the list of changes as noted. And then number 2, to approve the curriculum supplemental positions for the 22-23 school year as submitted. Have a motion for those 2 items.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, thank you. Any discussion?
One thing that I will bring up in regard to the personnel agenda, one of the things that we did a little bit differently and we'll start to implement moving forward for the personnel agenda is to attach a document that has a list of all the personnel motions. If President Shriver was to read through all the motions tonight, we'd be here until midnight, especially in the month of August when we have a lot of new hires, we have resignations, we have supplemental activities that we go through and approve. To put them all on single motions makes it a little bit cumbersome. So it is available to the community. It's simply to go in there, you can click on that report, and in that report there you will see more or less everything that would be itemized as individual motions. It's a nice document that we use internally also to collaborate among the human resources and business department too. We're able to effectively make sure that we have all the motions on there. We'll take note that Brian Matrazzo, who is on the list for hire tonight, is with us here this evening, and I'll give him an opportunity to give a brief introduction after we move through the motion here.
Great. Any other questions or comments on the motion on the table? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Under section 7, policy, I'll entertain a motion to approve the second reading of the revisions and updates to policy 227 as was submitted. Is that a motion?
Second.
Sorry, Chris. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Under section 8, student activities, I don't believe we have anything tonight on student activities. 9, old business. Any director have any old business they would like to bring up? Hearing none, we'll move to new business. Any director have any new business they'd like to discuss? No?
So with new business, I'll allow Brian Matrazzo to introduce himself. Brian joins us from Propel. He is now formally approved as our Director of Facilities and Maintenance. Throughout the interview process, Brian demonstrated himself to be extremely knowledgeable in the area of facilities and maintenance, has overseen a large number of facility improvements, has a strong working knowledge of overseeing custodial staff and cleaning and sanitizing. We're very pleased to have him. We're very fortunate, I think, to bring him on to staff. He will replace Mr. McDade, who has been with us for many years. And Mr. McDade did an outstanding job. He is retiring in October, and Mr. Matrazzo will take over that leadership.
I just want to thank Dr. Kreider for inviting me here tonight. Very excited to join the Carlington Cougars team. But as he mentioned, I've worked the last 7 years at Propel Charter Schools. We have 13 schools throughout Allegheny County, 10 buildings, approximately 4,000 students. So, you know, we've done a lot of projects in the interview process, which Keith and Dennis were part of. We had an opportunity to talk about some of the things we want to do here at Carlington, which was very exciting. You know, I'm all about improving the schools to make the space better for the students, because that's why we're all here. And, you know, I want to thank everybody for being so welcoming and for this opportunity, and I'm excited to start.
Great. Thank you.
Welcome.
Glad you're here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other new business? Nope. Open forum. We have several people in the audience that signed up to speak on open forum. The first on the list is Brian Goodman.
You guys want to stand, sit?
Sure.
All right. I'll just put something together so I don't get lost on a tangent. All right, my name is Brian Goodman, from 2000 graduate of Carlington. I have 3 kids in this district. I've coached over 20 seasons of sports in this community, baseball, football, and wrestling. I understand what it takes and all that goes into. Once at the high school level, it becomes extremely important to have the right people in the leadership roles. From being so involved at the youth level, it has been a culture shock for me. Coming up to the junior, senior high school programs, hearing all the stories over the years, having conversations with parents, athletes, coaches, and our own AD, you start to get the sense that as a district, we don't value our sports programs or our feeder programs. And it's been that way for too long. Something needs to change. We are having kids leave the district because of our sports programs. I'm not saying all our programs are lacking. Some are doing things the right way, and it shows. Who brings coaches and staff to the board to be considered for hire? What goes into hiring them? What kind of interview process is in place? Can it be improved in any way? Why are our numbers so low? Football has 3 kids coming back as seniors this year. Wrestling has 1 kid coming back as a senior this year. Somebody's got to ask the question of what's going on and why is that happening? Now, we have some exceptional football coaches on our staff. And we lost one last year for family purposes, and he's taking some time, we get it. But do we have the right people in the place running the show? I say no. And if our AD or Dean of Education doesn't see that, I implore him to look a little harder. He can start with his voicemails and emails. Could it be that wearing the AD hat and the Dean of Education hat is just too much to handle both jobs efficiently? Maybe. Right now with football, we have a unique situation. If you guys aren't aware, 8 years ago, we went Carlington's youth program went all Carlington. We used to be a program that allowed anybody from anywhere close by to come and bring their kids. 8 years ago, we went all Carlington, which allowed us to develop these kids, to continue to see where we should move them and put them in the right place, and we've been able to develop these kids to a position where they're at now. And for 8 years, we ran that program with guys like John Shuley was the president, ran that program so efficiently, effectively, and taught me so much about coaching. So to see how we ran the program, to have all these kids come up through the ranks, to see kids that I've coached personally that loved the games, that were students of the sport, wouldn't miss anything for anything if it had to do with football. And I'm seeing some of them kids having conversations with some of them kids that don't want to come and do it anymore. I mean, I asked, what's the problem? So you look into it a little further. I care, I'm passionate about this stuff. I find all kinds of problems with what's going on with the district in our sports programs. There tends to be a disconnect from what's going on at home with parents and what their thoughts are to what everybody believes everything is. People aren't happy with what's going on, and when you bring concerns to people like the AD, like I have in the past, it gets brought directly to your kid's head coach, and it is brought to your attention that it was already talked to you about. So there's a reason that people have a fear to bring things to people, because you're afraid of what the repercussions could be to my kid. I'm just trying to do the best thing, but sometimes these kids are maybe held accountable for what the parents are doing. With what we did with Carlington's youth program, we created a culture that was amazing. I mean, John Shuley taught me a lot. I'll use that name a lot, but he taught me a lot about how to coach, how to run a program, how to run an organization. And if you ask any parent that was involved in our youth program through football, they would have nothing but good things to say. You might find one or two that don't. You always will. But everybody had great things to say. It was such an experience to go through that with my boys from 7 years old all the way up to 12, and I stuck around after they were done just because it was such a great experience, and I wanted to keep this going for all these kids. Our program now has built. We looked at, when we started this, we had maybe 11, 12, 13 kids on the 12 and 11-year-old team. I think they got 30 kids this year. So something's happening. The program is building, and we are now building from the bottom up. We actually have a true feeder program. Years past, we take our kids, develop them, and then go over to Ingram and Montour, or cross the river to the city and go play for that school. And we left our guard to come up and, hey, you got to be a running back now, or something like that. You understand what I'm saying? So here's a unique situation with these kids that we've built for the last 8 years. This group of kids, the Tay-Tays, our 10th grade varsity starting quarterback, that kid's played with the group he's playing with since they were little kids, since they were 6 years old, 7 years old. And now you're starting to see kids like those that don't have that love for the game, and you start to ask yourself why. And I, as a coach, as a parent, as a person who's passionate about all this, I understand what it is. I want you guys to start maybe getting your finger to the wire and find out what's going on with our sports programs. I mean, it's proven that a kid that participates in sports programs has a better GPA than non-athletic kids. So, I mean, I know we look at academics in school, and that sets the priority, that's important. But we can't forget about the sports and the arts as well, because when you start forgetting about that stuff, you start leaving kids behind. Not all kids are going to grow up to be doctors and lawyers. Some are going to work with their hands, they're going to go to Parkway, and they're going to play football, and they're going to learn life that way. And when we're running programs, I mean, I'm not going to name names, but when you start running programs, you look at our programs that are struggling, you start to ask the question, as a board, ask the question of why are we struggling? Why do we only have one wrestler coming back for wrestling this year as a senior? Why do we only have 3 kids coming back for football this year for football? That's a question I feel I can't get to. I mean, I can talk to a lot of people. I have an idea in my head of what it is. I've heard a lot of passionate parents talk to me in the past couple weeks about all this, because I'm into it now, and I want to know why we are not into it as a board, to find out, are we putting the right people in place to run our programs that give our kids the best opportunities in sports and academics and arts and everything. We have some bright spots in this district that I love. I stayed here, I grew up here, I stayed here because I love the smallness of the district. You can get the one-on-one time. But we struggled with some academic stuff here last year, personally with my kids. But you know, this bigger picture is the sports stuff. We need sports as parents. You know, they say it takes a village to raise your kids. I need a decent football program. I need a decent wrestling program. You know, all us parents need decent programs for our kids to go and want to be a part of. And when you put people in place that shouldn't be in place, people start to walk away from that stuff and start to get lost. And if you guys can take a look and find out what's going on, I'm not saying anything needs to be done now, but going forward, when we start bringing on coaches and staff members that are going to be around these kids for these sports programs, maybe take a little extra time and question these people, look a little further into them. Because I think some of the stuff that's out there, we would have made different decisions on if everybody was aware and maybe things would have came up. Maybe they didn't, the decision was made anyway. But in closing, I care about these kids more than most maybe, because I've been involved with them all so much. And for me to see our program struggle in the way they are, to see our kids not wanting to go to a program because of certain individuals, that's a tragedy in my eyes. You have kids that want to do this and don't want to do it now because of individuals. I think that needs to change. I think going forward for coaching, hiring, there needs to be a more thorough process to not only see if everything's okay with legalities of everything, but maybe a personality. Is this person a person that wants to develop a culture in this community that brings everybody together and is on the same page? Are we bringing in somebody that's going to tell you, no, I know better because I know better? That's not okay. When safety's involved, that's not okay. So that's my 2 cents on it. I hope going forward things change on how we bring people on, and I would really love for something to be brought up about maybe the AD position's overworked or something, because every time I have a conversation with our AD, the answer I get at the end of that conversation is, well, I'm sorry, I had this and I had that and I have this and I have that. It's too many hats. I mean, I don't know if that's typical in other schools, that the dean of education, the person in charge of you know, enforcing rules and disciplines, is the guy who's the guy who tries to get people to play sports and recruits and, you know, is a helper of kids, to, you know, the buffer in between the coaches and all of that. So I implore you guys to finger to the wire, find out what's going on with our sports programs, because for 20 some years we've been struggling, and I mean, you guys have an opportunity in your positions to make a change, and going forward, let's do better with who we're bringing in, because who's here now? It ain't it.
Brian, thank you for your comments, thank you for your passion. Glad to see a Carlington guy sticking around, that's great. And I think all of us are committed to sports as a way to keep kids in school, the arts, like we all believe in that more rounded approach. So a lot of what you said is ringing true with us, and I appreciate the way that you approach the topic and keeping specific names out of it. You brought the issue up, and your voice is important to us, so thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thank you guys.
I don't know if you have any further comments, or that's good for you.
That's good.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Next on the list, Sonia Gray.
Sonia, that's me, thanks. So it's more of a practical thing. So Power School is great. I love it, super helpful. I wish my kids would use it a little more. But I feel like we really still need to get physical report cards, if no other time than at the end of the year. I mean, there's a whole list of reasons why you might not be able to get into Power School one day or the other, but even if none of those, you know, apply, and I can normally get into it, on the day the grades are finalized, your access gets disabled. So, you know, you might have a kid who doesn't know if they're going to be in 10th grade or 11th grade until, you know, a week before school starts, whatever. It just seems silly to me to not get at least one report card on paper at the end of the year.
Okay.
That's all I got. Thanks.
Dr. Kreider, I think we sent out report cards, though.
I thought we did. Hard copy.
Does anybody else get them?
My son got one.
I thought my son, maybe there was a screw up, but I think.
Maybe.
I think
Neither
we
of
sent
my
out end
kids
of year
got them.
paper.
Wait, is that what they told you?
I mean, the one graduated, so, you know, he doesn't care what the letters say.
I
But
think we still do it, but maybe Dr. Kreider can
Yeah, I
double
thought I
check.
got a hard copy.
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
we do the hard copies, and then also at the high school level, what we also started was providing a transcript as well. I believe starting in the sophomore year, if not in the freshman year.
Okay,
So that transcript then parents are able to see. And that part, I'm not sure whether that's a hard copy or if that's just the transcript that then is available online. I believe they're mailed out, the transcripts as well.
I'm pretty sure the grades are at the end of the year.
I know the grades are, and then what the transcript helps with also is for graduation planning. And
Right.
Taking a look at you need to have at least 5 credits to be promoted onto 10th grade, 11 credits, whatever the markers are, 17 by your junior year to head into senior year. Helps parents see the courses that have been taken over time
Right.
and the grades, and to make sure that everything checks. But yeah, I'll take a look
'Cause
into.
I didn't get any physical report cards or progress reports from probably, maybe it was like the second interim or something, like very early in the year, last year, for
Okay.
either of my kids. So-
If you want to email Dr. Kreider, maybe he can have someone print out copies and just send you the end of the year.
Yeah, well, and like I said, I mean, it disables your access on the last day. So even still, like my one son who's still, in the district, like, we don't know what his schedule is, so we don't even know if he would want to come to back to school then.
I think it might be a special circumstance, because you
Maybe.
should have access. Children have the same last name, Gray?
No, they have different last names.
Okay, if we could, maybe if you're able to
Yeah.
stick around right after
Yeah.
the meeting, we'll touch base.
Just more
Thanks.
information.
All right.
Yeah.
But Power Schools is still disabled right now. I was logged on today just to
Okay.
see, because, my type A kid wanted to know if that schedule might be in there early.
Okay.
And it is definitely still disabled right now. So I presume that it would go live once the schedules were available.
Yes.
That's stressful to the teenager. They
Yeah.
want to know.
And for the parent.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that. Marlene, Toyota.
Yes, hi.
Hello.
I'm Marlene Chayette, I'm from Crafton, I lived here for 33 years. I'm a homeowner and pay my taxes, and I'm also a Republican committee woman. And I wrote a letter to each one of you. Did everyone get one? I mailed it to you. And did you read it?
Yes.
Okay. And I'll read it to you. I went before the June 2022 school board meeting and requested that the following books be placed in the Crafton Elementary School library: the Children's Golden Bible, God's Wisdom for Little Boys, and God's Wisdom for Little Girls by Jim and Elizabeth George. Also in May, I had given Dr. Mantich the following books to be reviewed by Mr. Andrews and the school board to be added to the Carlington Online Library and the Crafton Elementary School Library. The Constitution of the United States, Intelligent Design versus Evolution by Ray Comfort, The Rebirth of America by Nancy DeRoss, The Bible Dictionary by Dockery and Godwin. Most importantly, large print Bibles, the King James Version, the Amplified Version, and New International Version. Accelerated Reader Program has added the Bible to its catalog of books. Alliance Defending Freedom and Gateway to Better Education Censure Administration fact sheets of our biblical freedoms after I offered a Bible at the September 18, 2018 school board meeting. The Supreme Court has stated that the Bible may constitutionally be used in an appropriate study of history, civilization, ethics, comparative religion, or the like. By not allowing the Bible is communism, and many students are biblically illiterate and believe the false religions such as atheism, evolution theory that says we evolved from nothing. Earth Day is elevating the earth above God who made heaven and earth. Humanism is elevating people above God. New Age is Eastern religion. Christian parents that want their children to have wholesome Christian choices in their children's education have had to tolerate some regardless curriculum and uneducational books that are taught to them. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Proverbs 1:7. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needs not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. 2 Timothy 2:15. Now that you know that it is legal and that you already have religions in your school, let me know if and when you will be placing these biblical books in your library, and who has jurisdiction to make the decision to add them. If you choose to not add them, let me know the reason why you would overpower Christian Parents Request. Also, if denied, how many petitions will I need to get these biblical books added? And I brought the books for anyone who would like to view them. And so I understand that the board will have to vote on it. So I'm making an appeal that you think about it. If you fear the Lord, I'm sure you'll want them in your library. They will not hurt children, they will help them to have godly wisdom. So will you be willing to bring that before the board? I'll come back again next month.
Thank you, Marlene. I think we've discussed this in the past, and while each of us may have our personal religious beliefs, we believe that we are prevented from putting biblical books or any religious books into our circulation without having some sort of religious studies class as a basis for that. We're not able to advocate for any one religion. So we appreciate you bringing sharing your opinions with us, and whatever we might believe personally that we may advocate for that or not, we don't believe we're able to do that as a school district. So.
Did you look at the Alliance Defending Freedom fact sheet, that it is legal to have a Bible and a Bible dictionary in the library?
Yeah, at this high school, we don't have a normal formal library. We've changed our format a little bit.
They have an online Bible too.
So,
I read that in the letter, that you could have it online. Accelerated reader program. And I had talked to Dr. Kreider today on the phone, and I had told him that we already do have religion here, and we have a lot of things that are going on in the school that shouldn't be in here. And a lot of Christian parents are very upset what's been going on. And I would encourage you to allow the Bible to be put in. When I have read to you, the Supreme Court stated that it is legal. So by you telling me that it's not legal, are you the authority? Or who would be the authority to tell me that it's...
Ma'am, the Supreme Court may have very well said that a Bible is appropriate in an appropriate setting. Those have been limited to comparative religious classes on the college level. There is no Supreme Court case, and if you think there is, bring in the Supreme Court case, not your letter saying that you think that's what it says. Bring in the case, I'll be happy to look at it, but there is no case at any level that has approved the inclusion of either the Bible or any of the other religious type books in an elementary library. It is an endorsement of a particular religion, and the Supreme Court has consistently said no to that. Now, I'm not going to respond any further. That's what the law is, and this isn't for a debate.
Can you show me where it says that in the law?
I just said to you, I'm not going to respond any further.
You don't have that information, because if you look online on Gateway to Better Education, it will tell you.
You know, ma'am, I've spent 50 years representing school districts and studying the Constitution. I think I understand what the First Amendment is about, and that's my opinion. I've advised the board of that, and if they were to put any of your books into the library, I think the ACLU would be here very quickly. I can't say anything more to you, ma'am. We've had this conversation any number of times over the years. The Supreme Court has not changed. I'm sorry.
Ma'am, we're not prepared to act on your request, so we appreciate
you. Will not have a vote on it? No. What I understand, Dr. Kreider told me it would be a vote. The jurisdiction would come under the school board, and they would vote on it.
The process is the board would have to...
So you told me differently that...
He was correct. The process is the board would have to make a decision to put a motion on our agenda, which we'd have to do 24 hours in advance of our meeting. Yeah. So we can't vote tonight on this, but we could do it.
I meant that I would come back, the next meeting. I didn't need to be there tonight.
Right,
I think, Mr. Shriver, there may be a misunderstanding.
okay.
The board decides its agenda. The board does not have to vote to put something on an agenda or not on the agenda. If board members want it on the agenda, then the board members vote on that.
Right.
It's not that Dr. Kreider or myself or really anybody else can say, I'd like this motion voted on. That's not how the process works. The board decides its agenda. Now, I'm not sure if Mrs. Chioda understands that from what she's saying, but I don't want to leave her tonight with the impression that there will be a vote on this next month, the month after, or any following time, unless and until such time as the board says, we as a board decide that we are going to consider this issue and put it up for a vote. It is not an automatic, I'd like to have something voted on. The system just simply does not work that way.
Can you tell me where you're getting your legal advice from so I could look it up and verify it?
I told you, ma'am, I've done this for 50 years. I can't tell you every place and every book I've looked at. I don't know what to tell you.
When I came in 2018, you told me no Bible allowed anywhere, not even in the teacher's lounge.
No, I don't believe I said that.
When that was wrong. You gave me
I don't
wrong
believe I
advice.
said that. Look, I'm not going to debate this any
I'm
further.
not
I've given
debating.
the board the best advice I possibly can. Ma'am, you're just wrong on what the Supreme Court has said. I can't say it any differently than that.
Well,
If you bring in the case, I'll be happy to look at it. But you telling me on a piece of paper that the Supreme Court said, no, it doesn't work that way. Show me the case.
The First Amendment protects our religious rights.
The First Amendment also says that a public institution cannot endorse one religion over another, and it is consistently held. Ma'am, when you put a Bible in to the school library, an elementary school library, that is an endorsement. And that has been well settled.
It's on God's word, the
Right.
Bible.
As far as the guidance that we follow and based on the First Amendment, it's not, your vantage point is looking at from the theology part with God being our creator and having his voice there, where we're looking at the First Amendment with the latitude that we have to follow. There are certain rules that we have to follow. There's the PA school code, there's the Constitution, and we have to act and make decisions under that. I think like Mr. Shriver said, there's a lot of diversified beliefs up here represented on the school board. And as I shared with you on the phone this afternoon, what it would take is for the board to create that motion to say that they would like to put the Bible in the school libraries. It would be up to Dr. Manich and some of our teaching staff to make a move towards creating curriculum. It would be a world religion studies class that would have different aspects of world religion to take in a comparative type of analysis. Generally, they do occur at the post-secondary level. However, those are things that could be considered, but I don't think that at this point the board has an interest in making a motion.
Well, then, if you cannot allow the Bible in, you should remove evolution. That's a false religion. And you should remove a lot of the different things that you have here that are a religion. Earth Day, you're building the earth above God. You're putting humanism, you're putting people above God. That's what you're doing right now. So I fear God. And I want to obey God and His Word, and I'm a Christian. So I believe that the Bible would help children to have godly wisdom. It won't hurt people, it'll help them.
But do you understand that not all of our children are Christian? So to choose to endorse the religion, I understand that you believe that this is the one true religion. But other kids in this school, that is not their religion. And the minute that we go down the pathway, that we put a Bible in the library or whatever these other books are, we're opening the floodgates and we're putting in every religious text for even religions that I suspect you do not endorse. So this is also a slippery slope kind of an argument.
But if you look if you would look on the fact sheet, then you would find out that you don't have to put all.
But why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we?
That's just
We're being
wrong,
fair
ma'am.
to our children.
That's just flat out wrong.
And it doesn't
You
matter.
can say it over and over, but
Yeah.
it's not going to make it right.
How about if
And ma'am,
I,
it doesn't matter because I don't think anyone on this board has the opinion that they want to put this up for motion.
But what I can say is
and
you've
is it
provided,
because you don't want the Bible in, or why is it your
well,
opinion?
I think what you've done, you've provided the information to the board to make a cogent decision on whether to make a move towards approving the Bible to be in the schoolhouse. We reserve 3 minutes of public time towards that. It's not open really for debate. It's
Okay.
more or less allowed for individuals to express their concerns. And I really do believe we've given you ample time to share the information. We appreciate you sharing the information with us and also putting it in writing.
And one last sentence. If you watch the movie God of Wonder on YouTube, you will take evolution out of your books because it is a false religion.
Thank you.
Are there any other open forum questions or comments from the audience? If not, turning back to the board, any open forum issues before we adjourn? Nope, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? We are adjourned. Thank you.